I'm looking forward to the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. Yeah. I'd like to begin our evening by thanking our sponsors, because the Hall of Fame is nonprofit, so our sponsors are very much appreciated. And they are FCA, the Fiat Chrysler Automobile, Central Michigan University, and 101.9 WDET, and Wayne State University. So thank you very, very much. So, welcome to a very special evening as we celebrate the 33rd Annual State of Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. We also celebrate tonight winners of the Wade H. McCree Jr. Awards for the Advancement of Justice, and we'll hear about those more in a bit. I'm Lucinda Davenport, and I'm chair of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame Committee and director of MSU's School of Journalism. The Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame was established to recognize those who have advanced the legacy of a free and responsible press, and who have inspired others to improve the quality of the profession. It acknowledges the service and dedication of individuals whose distinguished contributions to the profession in their communities, region, or the state have earned them a place in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. Induction memorializes extraordinarily and clearly outstanding careers. And we're going to hear about some of those today, or tonight, because tonight we honor 4 such distinguished individuals. Columnist Susan Ager, who's over here to my right, if you'll wave. Automotive journalist John McElroy, right here, please, who's waving. Radio news director Jerome Vaughn, right here. We are also celebrating journalism educator from CMU, Jim Wojcik. Let's clap him. And again, he couldn't be here because of the weather, but I think he still has lots of supporters that came because we have a special surprise in his place. So these professionals have made significant impacts on the journalism profession. They have been and continue to be leaders in their field, earning the respect and admiration of their peers and inspiring other journalists. They have believed in the freedom of the press to report issues and events in a way that help people make good decisions to lead productive lives. And each one has also believed in the exciting and evolving values of journalism and the future of journalism, as these award winners have been a mentor to many students and young journalists. What a wonderful opportunity to gather here this evening and to have some fun and to celebrate great journalism in Michigan. I'd like to offer you a short history on the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. It began as the Michigan Newspaper Hall of Fame and honored journalists from 1952 to 1968. Then the committee was defunct for about 20 years, and in 1985, Dr. Stan Soffen, the director of MSU's School of Journalism at the time, went to the Michigan Press Association and talked to David Hayhow, whom we lost this year, about reviving the Hall of Fame. The committee today is made up of representatives from nonprofit and diverse journalism organizations within Michigan, such as the Asian American Journalism Association, the Association of Women in Communications, Detroit Press Club, Department of Journalism at Central Michigan University, Detroit chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, Detroit chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists, Individual Communicators Network, the Journalism Program at Wayne State University, Michigan Association of Broadcasters, Michigan Interscholastic Press Association, Mid-Michigan chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists, and the Michigan Press Association and Foundation. Each organization has an equal vote in the process. Other nonprofit journalism organizations are encouraged to also co-sponsor the Hall of Fame. This induction banquet would not be possible without the efforts from these organizations and their representatives. Our program says that these organizations and these representatives form a board of directors. That's incorrect. That's a mistake. They form a committee. However, I'm going to hurry up and add it to my CV that I was on a board of directors for such an ostentatious organization, because it's in print. So it's a committee. So would the Hall of Fame committee please stand? There we go. Some here, here, over here. Thank you. Although we are recognizing inductees, let us please also honor the Michigan journalists who were previously inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. Some of those individuals have wanted to return this evening. They return every year. And would members of the Hall of Fame please stand? We've got all over. So. Thank you. Thank you. We also want to recognize our Hall of Fame members who are no longer with us. And as we have every year, I ask that you please remember journalists who gave their lives or their freedom while trying to tell us what is happening in areas such as the Gaza Strip, Syria, Slovakia, the Congo, and many other places around the world. May 3rd is World Press Freedom Day. The website of the Committee to Protect Journalists lists the number of journalists since 1992 who have been killed. That's 1,285. That's 50 more than I reported to you last year at this time. Some were murdered, others were on dangerous assignments, or killed in the crossfire of combat. Also right now, more than 262 journalists are imprisoned worldwide, many in countries that suppress a free press. All of these journalists were covering beats such as politics, war, corruption, human rights, crime, culture, business, sports. Let us also reflect that it is compassionate, ethical, and highly professional journalists who cover the hard events involving death and destruction, such as that of children and adults involved in school shootings. By March 24th, there were already 17 school shootings this year. That's 1.4 senseless shootings a week. So please join me in a moment of silence to honor these journalists who are no longer with us, and also the victims of disasters. Thank you. Please indulge me also for a moment to talk about the industry. It is always evolving, and we are in another exciting time. A Politico headline said that Trump may be the best thing that happened to journalism in a while. Everybody who's interested in what this president is going to do or say next. And he has freed journalists from maybe the traditional ways of doing things. You know, when he had initially said no press corps, which of course didn't work out, we said, fine, we'll figure out other ways to get the information to the public. Also, our history lessons show us that fake news has always been around. Sometimes it's been called sensationalism, other times yellow journalism, and today it is often clickbait for social media. But fake news confirms the reason for professional journalism, the importance of good journalism, professional journalists, and the responsibilities of a free press in a democratic society have become prominent topics. Public attention to the importance of good journalism, and also, by the way, the enrollment of journalism schools generally, is growing. And so, it takes a village to make this event a success. Many people are responsible for this event, and their names are listed in your program, and they're correctly listed. But you know, in my mind, they are board of directors. I'd like to especially thank Corrine Lubis, who has, there she is back there. She's the one who has put everything together. Rick Epps has helped to design the program. He's back there. And students Jamie Bozak, Aaron Vergeth, and Sierra Ream have also been a great help, so thank you. We have several students attending, and these students aspire to the success of those that we honor tonight. Students are the visionaries and the leaders of tomorrow's journalism. So would those who sponsor dinner for journalism students please stand, and also the students stand who represent the various colleges and universities in Michigan, please. Thank you. And I think on your tables you'll see the awards convocation to know all the different things that journalism students are doing today in some of their scholarships and in their internships. So, alrighty, my part is almost over, she says, smiling because it is going to be taken on by great folks and great orators and great journalists. And the great Peter Badia will take over as host. So Peter Badia is the editor and vice president of the Detroit Free Press. Peter has been in the newspaper business since he graduated from Stanford in the mid-1970s. He is a multiple Pulitzer Prize winning editor who has lived and worked in all 4 time zones. Peter comes to Detroit from the Cincinnati Enquirer, where he was an editor for the prior 2 years and also served as regional editor for the USA Today's Network Ohio region. And we are very happy to have him here. So, thank you. Peter?
Yep, you bet. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very glad to be here as well. You might be wondering why somebody who's been in Michigan for all of 7 months is emceeing this event tonight. It's really very simple. Joe Grimm told me to. And I've found and kind of knew before coming to Michigan that, Snyder may think he's the governor of the state, but I think we all know who runs the place. And in any case, it's really wonderful to be here and to have this opportunity. I was thinking the other day that tonight we're honoring the best of journalism in Michigan. Tomorrow, our industry honors the Pulitzer Prizes, which come out tomorrow afternoon. The annual announcement date is tomorrow. So we've got a nice bookend going here tonight. The best of Michigan's journalistic tradition and the best of our nation's journalistic tradition being celebrated tomorrow. So I think the timing is quite wonderful. It's been a fantastic first 7 months for me in Michigan. I think the thing I've had to listen to the most is people complaining about the length of winter, and an ice storm in April probably says something about that. This is actually the first time I've been in East Lansing. I've been a little busy in Detroit, so I haven't gotten to either East Lansing or Ann Arbor, but I'm proud to work for an institution that has both major universities in the state really, really angry with us. Because of the respective reporting our staff has done. Clearly, the talented people at the Free Press are doing the right thing, and because if we're annoying central administration of both universities, then that can't be all bad. And I have to tell you that being in Michigan, a place I've watched from afar for a long time, has just been extraordinary. This is an amazing news place, this state, unlike most others. There's also a passion here for the place. As you heard, I can't keep a job. I've lived in all 4 time zones, but I've lived in San Francisco, I've lived in Dallas, I've lived in small cities, I've lived in big cities. None of them have the passion for the place that Michigan has. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. The ups and downs that the state has seen economically, the incredible beauty of the state, the contrast between one of our country's major cities in Detroit and up north. There's just so much that's interesting about this place that it's a journalist's dream to be here. So I'm really happy to be here, and I think that for all of us, as was just alluded to, the fight for continuing high-quality journalism of integrity has never been more important. Forget the daily tweet storm, which was quite extraordinary this morning if you didn't read it. forget the fake news and all that's going around it. The responsibility and the opportunity that we have as journalists today is really unparalleled. Partly that's driven by the extraordinary technology that we now have available to us. Some of us who have gray beards, that would be us, when we got into this business, our tools were a notebook, a pencil, and probably a manual typewriter, although there was this period that we all went through with IBM Selectrics. Some of you in the audience are old enough to remember those and how god-awful they were. But and now today, of course, the primary tool of a journalist is their smartphone, on which they can shoot video, take notes if they wish, and tweet, engage in social media, do all the things that we ask reporters to do. So that in and of itself is amazing. I tell students, I'm on campuses a lot because with Vince Duffy, I'm involved in the accrediting of journalism schools across the country. On campus a lot, telling students about what an extraordinary opportunity they have. And it's not just because journalism's not as hard a major as chemistry. Journalism school enrollment has never been higher than it is right now. And yeah, a lot of that is driven by PR and advertising, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are so many great, capable journalists coming out of schools like Michigan State and Michigan and CMU and EMU and Western and so on, Wayne State, in our state, let alone nationwide, that it couldn't be a better time to be a journalist. But more importantly, perhaps, we have this fight for our lives right now to preserve the credibility of what I consider a really noble craft. It's not like we've not been attacked before, because any of us who've been editors for a while could, fill Ford Field with the complaints over the years about we're either leftist or rightist or whatever. One of my favorite days was when I was editor in Portland, Oregon, where I got a phone call from somebody screaming at me about what lefties we were, and we were communists, and clearly we worshipped Lenin and things like that, and hung up that phone after being berated, and the next person who called accused us of being fascists and supporters of Hitler and so on and so forth. So you get it coming and going. Well, actually, one of the best ones ever was that lumped Hitler and Lenin and Stalin together, and I sort of wanted to explain modern geopolitics to the guy, but I figured it wasn't worth it. So, at any rate, criticism has always been there, but it's more acute, it's more sustained, and it's had more staying power than in the past. And there's been books, literally, written about how to deal with that. The first way we have to deal with that is continue to produce journalism of the highest order, to keep doing great work. Even in a digital age where things are measured often by page views and engage time and things like that, which is a really important marker of how we're doing, quality journalism is the best way to remind people of the importance of the free society that we live in, and the strongest reminder we have of the importance of the First Amendment. There's a lot of talk about people trying to repeal the First Amendment. I don't think that's going to happen, but we still have to, as we say at the Free Press, be on guard. And at the same time, we have to do a much better job of showing people how we do our work, talking more to our communities about how we do our work. When I came into journalism, it was, our journalism speaks for us. And I think our journalism still does speak for us, but it's even more important today that we show how we do our work, that we explain what we're about, that we open ourselves up to different opinions, regardless if you publish what is seen as a left-wing editorial page in the Free Press and a right-wing editorial page in the news. I don't think either one of them is as extreme as they're labeled, but then I lived in Portland and San Francisco, so I have some sense of extremes politically. In any case, the fight is important, and we have to keep fighting and keep doing what we're doing and continue to do it at the highest order. It's harder than it's ever been, but we have more tools, and we certainly have a next generation of amazing journalists coming along. So that was a message I wanted to leave with you tonight. Now we'll get into the fun stuff. So let's start with we'll do the McCree Awards first, as you heard earlier, and then we'll have dinner, and then we'll come back with the inductions. So, Ron Zwonkowski, you're on, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
Yep, thank you. And once a Freepster, always a Freepster. Yep, it's like being a Marine.
Good evening for me, and a warm, dry welcome to all of you who endured our state's wonderful spring weather. The only problem I have with winter is it just isn't long enough to be here tonight to help us celebrate the very best in Michigan journalism and journalists. My name, as Peter said, is Ron Zwonkowski. I'm here tonight as a grateful member of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, and now in my dotage as president of the Michigan Press Association Foundation. To those of you who are entering the Journalism Hall of Fame this weekend, may I congratulate you on that very singular honor bestowed by your peers and remind you that it only takes one little typo to go from being inducted to being indicted. Before I also get to the very special awards I'll be presenting tonight to some terrific journalists, I'd also like to take just a minute to ask you to join me in acknowledging the very special people who are behind so many of the great journalists who are working in Michigan today, who in many ways make that work possible. So for all the wives, husbands, partners, parents, children, good friends of journalists, for all of you who have ever been put off, stood up, forced to wait, or otherwise came in second place to yet another really good story, for those of you whose personal deadlines were probably ignored, for those of you who smile and nod while listening to yet another story about a really great city council meeting, for those of you who put up with the passion of this profession, for all of you on the support staff of every journalist in Michigan, thank you. This is not an easy time to be a professional journalist, not when your painstakingly assembled truth can be so easily dismissed as fake news by people in power, not when any bozo with access to the internet can circulate blatant falsehoods that fly around the world faster than your truth, not when the resources to do your job are constantly being threatened. And yet, so much good and so much really great journalism is still being done by people who have no agenda other than the truth, by people driven by the belief that good, honest storytelling with standards of balance, fairness, and accountability can make a difference. These are the kinds of journalists who, in Michigan, earn the Wade McCree Advancement of Justice Awards. This is the 44th year for these awards, which are among the most prized in Michigan journalism. The awards were started by the State Bar of Michigan. They are named for Wade McCree, a Detroit lawyer who became a county and federal judge, served as Solicitor General of the United States, and in his final years was a law professor at the University of Michigan. Throughout his career, most importantly, Judge McCree always stood up for equal rights and equal justice, and he never missed an opportunity to advocate the importance of free speech and a free press toward the ends of equal justice and equal opportunity. The State Bar a few years ago decided to stop sponsoring the McCree Awards, so the Michigan Press Association Foundation stepped up to keep them going. The MPA Foundation is a nonprofit outgrowth of the Michigan Press Association. We're dedicated to recognizing, supporting, and advancing quality journalism in Michigan. The MPA Foundation has raised and distributed tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship grants to journalism students at Michigan colleges and universities, and also sponsors the annual Michigan Journalist of the Year competition. There is not another philanthropic organization in Michigan dedicated to journalism. And if you are interested and able to join us in supporting this very important profession, please consider a contribution to the MPA Foundation of any amount. It is our work to keep the important work of journalism going at every level and on every platform in Michigan. The McCree Awards recognize journalism that explores, explains, or improves our legal, law enforcement, or court systems. The awards annually draw more than 24 entries from across Michigan. They are judged by a panel representing the legal and journalism professions. These judges work independently. They score the entries based on significance, impact, presentation, and how much these stories or projects contributed to solving problems improving a situation, or fostering a greater public understanding of our legal, law enforcement, and justice systems. To put all of that another way, you got to do some pretty goddamn good work to get a McCree Award. The one thing on which judges always agree is the great difficulty they have in deciding these awards from the entries. So, the first of our 3 well-deserved winners tonight, a Wade McCree Advancement of Justice Award, goes to a team of journalists from WXYZ, Channel 7 in Detroit, for their year-long investigation of corrupt lawyers and realtors who worked the probate court system to steal estates and money from legitimate heirs who didn't know that their rights were being abused. The work of reporter Heather Catallo, videographer Johnny Sarton Jr., and editor Randy Lundquist led to the resignation or ouster of 3 public officials, investigations by county and federal authorities and by the Attorney Grievance Commission, and legislation to fix the system. Congratulations to the team from WXYZ-TV, and accepting on their behalf tonight is Bob Giles, former Director of News Operations at WXYZ and a member of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. A Wade McCree Advancement of Justice Award goes to the Detroit Free Press team of Jim Schaefer and Gina Kaufman for their in-depth investigation of problem police officers across Southeast Michigan and practices that enable these bad cops to keep working, often in different communities. Their reporting showed how lax oversight of bad cops in Michigan puts citizens at risk and costs taxpayers millions of dollars in lawsuits. Their project involved dozens of persistent requests for disciplinary information from reluctant, unwilling police departments. Congratulations to the persistent team from the Detroit Free Press. And our third Wade McCree Advancement of Justice Award goes to reporter Mike Martindale of the Detroit News for his coverage of an outrageous Sanilac County court ruling in which a twice-convicted rapist was granted partial custody of the child conceived during his sexual assault of a 12-year-old girl. The judge, who ultimately rescinded his ruling, and the prosecutor involved both vowed to take action to avoid a repeat of such situations. Martindale's work shed important light on how public agencies and the court systems work, or sometimes don't, for the public they are supposed to serve. Congratulations to Mike Martindale of the Detroit News. Congratulations again to all of our McCree winners tonight, and allow me just another plea to support the Michigan Press Association Foundation so that we can continue to support the important work of great journalists across Michigan. Thank you for your attention, and now please enjoy dinner before we get to the evening's main event. Okay.
So our first inductee is my fellow Freepster, because as I said to somebody, once a Freepster, always a Freepster. It's like being a Marine, you can't escape, is Susan Ager. Apparently, Susan got a lot of guidance from her father, who's with us this evening, and who taught her that there's no such thing as a stupid question, which is great training for being a journalist and being so accomplished. I loved it in her bio that said she was curious from an early age. I assume that meant you like to ask a lot of questions, not that you were weird. As anybody who's followed Michigan journalism for a long time knows what an accomplished member of our craft Susan is. She was the first in her family to earn a bachelor's degree. She was editor-in-chief of the student paper at Michigan State, only the second woman to hold that position. She worked all over the place, and including was in San Francisco in the late 70s when I happened to be there too, and we both were involved in the coverage of the infamous assassination of George Moscone and Harvey Milk, which, as you might imagine, was a unbelievable experience journalistically and an unbelievably depressing time in the city. She was working for AP then, which I can only imagine how frantic that must have been covering that story on that day. That's back in the day when, you know, the wire machines would ring and it'd be 18th lead right through or something like that from AP, and that was certainly one of those days. She worked at San Jose Mercury and, of course, worked for a generation here in Michigan. Really, I went back, and one of the virtues of electronics and digital technology and so on, I went back and looked at some columns. They were brilliant. They were warm. They were fun to read. Her great character and the character of the people she wrote about really comes through well. And she also went on to become a very distinguished writing coach. And to a lot of us, I think that's probably what Susan is most known as somebody who really prized the craft and made a huge difference for generations of journalists. Won all kinds of national awards and is just a fantastic example of the tradition and the quality that defines journalism in Michigan. Susan, congratulations.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I think I was 24 when George Moscone was killed, and I was the lead writer on that story, and all of us worked 48 hours straight. Just because when it happens, you work, and you call your partners and say, sorry, I'm not going to be home for 2 days. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you to the committee for selecting me. I think everybody my age long ago began to count those in our lives who got us to where we are by encouraging us, coaching us, cheerleading, nudging, and even kicking. I count, for example, my high school English teacher. His name was Paul Madden. This is in Dearborn Heights. And at the bottom of one of my essays in 9th or 10th grade, he wrote, "You should send this to the Reader's Digest." And I never did that, but I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I could become a writer. It was the first time I thought it. I think about Maureen McDonald, who's here tonight. Maureen, raise your hand. Maureen and I worked together at the Michigan State student newspaper, and we were walking across Grand River Avenue one day toward the Bagel Fragel factory, whose demise I mourn. We were walking together, I'll never forget this, and she said, "Why don't you run for editor-in-chief of the State News?" And I had never thought about it. And she said, "You could do it. You could do it." And I did it. And she taught me, she put the first hint in my mind that I could be a leader. And I remember an old pal of mine from U of M, he taught in the journalism department there, named Don Kubit. Anybody know Don? Anyway, I was moaning and complaining to Don in the early days of my column writing when I was weepy and sleepless with anxiety every night. I was moaning to him about my state of mind, and he said, "Don't take it too seriously. Anything you write will be peed on the next morning by puppies." And I tried to never forget that, even though there were other days when my buddy Brian Dickerson had to talk me out of quitting. I must have quit, 1,000 times? I'm going to quit this job, I'd say to Brian. My first coach, though, and my most consistent coach was my father, who is here tonight at 87. Dad, raise your hand. He was driven here by my brother David, my youngest brother David. Raise your hand. So he coached me from early childhood. For example, whenever any of us three kids would leave the house, he would say, "Remember, you're an Ager," as if the Agers were the Kennedys. Now, we didn't have chiseled faces, and we didn't have Boston accents. And we grew up as an unknown little family in a 1,000-square-foot house with 3 tiny bedrooms, 1 tiny bathroom, and an extra toilet my dad installed in the basement so serious urges could be met. We were not the Kennedys. But Dad also told us, as far back as I can remember, and Peter stole my line, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm proud to announce tonight that I have asked thousands of them over the course of my career. Dad taught me to be unashamed of ignorance and to be proud of curiosity. I've come to understand that curiosity is a great gift. Unless you're dealing with crooks, creeps, or cops, everybody wants to tell their story. Everybody wants to be understood. The questions you ask, even your friends and family, are gifts to them. They show them that you care, that you want to know them. The poet T.S. Eliot once wrote, "We die to each other daily. At every meeting we are meeting a stranger." And I say, only our curiosity allows us to keep up, to know the human beings who are blossoming and unfolding around us each day. I owe tonight's honor not only to all my coaches and cheerleaders, but to the hundreds, maybe thousands, of people over my career who have indulged my curiosity and answered my questions, trusting me to tell their stories to the world. I'm telling fewer of those stories now, but I'm still not afraid to ask a stupid question of, say, the guy in front of me in the checkout line who has 16 bags of hot dog buns in his cart. It turns out he was hosting his own 75th birthday party, after which he was going to swim across the lake, as he did on every one of his birthdays. Not Lake Michigan. I also want you to know something I just found out 2 hours ago. You know, stories, you put a story into the world, as any of us journalists know, and it's not just done. That's not the end of it. The life of that story continues. Probably 12 years ago, when I was doing a thing for the Free Press called Tell Susan Ager Where to Go, I was traveling around the state and writing about people. I spent a couple days up in Calumet writing about a family whose beloved young man had joined up to go to Vietnam and was never heard from again. Nothing, nobody knew where he was, nobody knew what happened to him. He was just gone. And meanwhile, a woman in Ferndale was still wearing a POW bracelet for him. For you young people, those were bracelets that were issued during the Vietnam War, memorializing people who were missing. She was wondering what had happened to him. That's how I got the story idea. So I went in search of his family. They told me this horrible story. We got terrible pictures of them mourning over his old pictures. Today, I got an email from a guy I never met who said that he had gone to school with this man, Marshall Kipina, and they just found his remains in Laos. And I was so touched that, again, the story continued and lasted and is now maybe over, although probably not for those people who still mourn him. I leave you with this quote, one of my favorites, from the writer Dorothy Parker, which I think is a good life slogan, not only for journalists, but for everyone. The cure for boredom is curiosity. There is no cure for curiosity. Thank you.
I'm just curious. Are you up for a freelance assignment? Yeah. I'm serious. I'd love to have that story for the Free Press if you'd like to write it.
Okay, we'll talk.
Okay. So our next honoree is this gentleman right here, John McElroy. I don't know when this guy sleeps. He's been characterized as the hardest working automotive journalist on the planet, and can't imagine that that's hyperbolic. It's got to be true. He's host of a national TV program, Autoline This Week, host of a live webcast, Autoline After Hours, and host of Autoline Daily, the first industry webcast of industry news and analysis. And at the same time, he finds time to do broadcast radio segments daily on WWJ and any number of other things. His interest in things cars comes naturally. He actually worked at an hourly UAW job at various area plants when he was young, before he found his true calling in journalism. There's a wonderful quote about John that says, "John is a member of a very small group of journalists who have excelled in every dimension of their work, due to their commitment to all aspects of the industry, rather than just a random story or a current news item." He's won countless awards, but I think that quote, above everything else, sums up a remarkable, accomplished journalist. John McElroy.
Well, good evening, everybody who made it through the ice and the snow and whatever else is going on here in Michigan, because you made it through here. Very well done. I really want to thank the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, especially the committee, and particularly, specifically, Maureen McDonald, who is the one who first approached me on would I even consider accepting an award like this. But I got to tell you, especially thanks to the McRae winners, that's serious journalism. That's really good stuff. That's what we need more of. And of course, I offer my heartfelt congratulations to Susan Ager, my friend Jerome Vaughn, and Jim Wojcik. I know you're not him, but I want to congratulate him too. This is quite a date, April 15th, 2018. Maybe some of you don't know it. There's a little bit of historic stuff going on here. This is the date to the year on which Abraham Lincoln died. This is the date on which the Titanic sank. And this is the date I hope all of you have got your taxes done, because if not, the IRS is going to come after you. It is, of course, the date that we're being inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. It's also my birthday. So yeah. There's some karma going on here. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Really good. Most of you know the lyrics. I started out in my career 40 years ago this June. I still can't believe it. The time has gone by so fast, it doesn't seem possible, and yet when I think back to the beginning, it's like, yeah, that was a long time ago. But when I entered my career, I never, ever dreamed of, thought of, considered ending up in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. In fact, I got a confession to make to all of you. I graduated from Wayne State with a bachelor's degree with a major in English, and to me, journalism was always a lowly form of writing. They had to go out and dig up their facts. We who wrote novels and stories and did creative writing, well, geez, we created our own facts. And maybe with the way things are going today, maybe that's the better way of doing it. But there's no question, and I'm just echoing a lot of what's been said here today. Today, journalism is more important than ever, real journalism. It's the kind of thing that goes forward with democracy, with our society, with our sense of community, by knowing what's going on. It is the only profession protected by the Constitution of the United States of America, and there's a reason for that. And it's the reason of moving our society forward. So it's just incredible to me to be considered worthy enough to be amongst the journalists who are really, truly making a difference. And it's great to see the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame maintaining that kind of heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Olivia, would you join us? So I think I just kind of blew the surprise and told him that. Oh, okay. So allow me to introduce Olivia Vaughn.
I stand before you humbled to be the daughter, one of 8 kids, of Jerome Vaughn, not only a success and inspiration, but also a father to not just the 8 children that he has, but all of the soccer players, neighbors, hobos, everyone else he lit and off the street and fed. We have gathered to celebrate the hard work and determination that he has put to being such a great journalist that doesn't even begin to cover everything that he has done for his family. He has given us hope through his encouragement. He has coached us not only on our soccer teams, but also in the way to rise up and stand up in this wild and crazy world we live in. He has educated us through his love of history and documentaries, as well as making sure we can each sing our way through countless Beatles songs, and also scenes of pretty much every Star Trek episode. He has taught us to be proud of our heritage and stand up for those who have no voice. The kindness of his heart is like no other. And he has been such an example to us with his passion and wisdom he applies to his life as well as our own. So I speak for all of us when I say thank you. I am unbelievably proud of your accomplishments, and I love you.
Top that, Peter.
Yeah, no kidding. Olivia, that was fantastic. As a dad, I can tell you that any father would be profoundly moved by that. Nice work. Plus, we just learned 2 really, really important things that we have in common. Between the 2 of us, we both have all the episodes of the original Star Trek, and probably watch them more often than our family wants us to. And he's a Beatles fan, which actually helped me get here tonight. I had the Beatles channel cranked up in my car coming up I-96. So I can't top that, but very, very quickly, this man is about Detroit. He has stuck with Detroit through thick and thin in his position as news director at WDET, but has spent his entire career caring passionately about a city that, and I talked earlier about the passion that Michiganders and Detroiters have for their city. He really and truly represents that, executing it through outstanding journalism. In addition, he has been profoundly committed to growing the next generations of journalists through internships. Through internship programs and countless other ways. So without prolonging this longer, because I can't top Olivia, Jerome Vaughn.
So I'm Jerome Vaughn. I'm the father of Olivia Vaughn, and henceforth will be known as such. That was a surprise to me. I didn't know that was coming. I'm a bit nervous. I wasn't nervous when I got here. I mean, it was bad enough that Susan and John were here, and I haven't met Jim yet. But I was thinking, okay, all right, I can handle this. This is all right. Then I've been seeing the names rolling by on the screens. I'm thinking, I might be in the wrong place, right? But Jim Schaefer was here, and I knew it was all right. Thanks, Jim. So I've been told I have 5 minutes to make remarks, so I'm going to get to it. I'm not going to go over by more than half an hour. So over the past several weeks, I've been thinking about what I'm going to say up here. You know, should I be serious? Should I try to be funny? Should I tell a dad joke? Because I'm a dad, if you hadn't heard that. And then I thought, also, I'll be giving a speech along here with other journalists that I admire. And so I thought, should I hire a speechwriter? Because, I mean, following these two, I'm thinking, oh boy, I need some help. So Susan, before I start, you have some notes you'd like to share with me? Anything I should get? No? Okay. Speak from your heart. Okay. And John, I just want to say thanks. You didn't cramp my style. You didn't take anything I was going to say, so it's okay. So after pacing in the live studio at WDET late on Friday afternoon, starting to write this speech, I decided to talk about why I love what I do. And many of you here already know why, because you're in journalism for many of the same reasons that I'm in journalism. So instead, I thought, I'm going to tell my kids why I do what I do. First of all, kids, let me apologize to you for not getting home at a regular time, for having to rush around here and there at the drop of a hat, including Friday night, and for occasionally missing a soccer game, but only occasionally. That's part of the price that I've had to pay, and we've had to pay, for protecting democracy. Yes, I agree that sounds a bit dramatic, a bit heavy-handed, and I don't at all think that somehow I am alone protecting the Republic from doom, although the kids, you know that Captain America is my guy, right? Right, good. Yeah. But the folks in this room are doing just that. They're a bunch of superheroes working to right the wrongs of the world. They're working to expose corruption. They're working to make sure justice is served. And they're working to make sure the population who will go out and vote in August and in November and in 2020 will have all of the information they need to make good, responsible choices in the voting booth. Now, it may not always appear to work out that way, but it does always work in the long run. As Dr. King paraphrased, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I believe that. It would be hard to do this job if I didn't believe it, and if I didn't believe that I could do just my part to bend it just a little bit towards justice. Kids, you know that I'm a big history buff, just like many of the folks in this room. That's why we watch documentaries for years on end. That's why every year we watch Eyes on the Prize. That's why I regularly make jokes about George C. Wallace. Sorry, that's an in-joke. That's why we talk about the discrepancies in many old movies about history. But part of the reason I love being a journalist is that I get to see history up close, and I get to tell Detroiters about it. I get to tell them that this thing is important, or that one is happening, and that they should know about it. And sometimes those stories are the ones that your grandchildren will be reading about in their history books. So before I wrap up these remarks, I'd like to take a moment to thank a few people. Thanks to the Hall of Fame committee for selecting me as a member of this body. I still don't know if I'm worthy of this honor, and after seeing the names, I'm feeling less so. But I will promise to continue to work towards that end for years to come. Thanks to Alicia Nails, director of the Wayne State University Journalism Institute for Media Diversity. She nominated me, and I'm still not quite sure why. I don't owe her any money or anything. Thanks also to Jack Lessenberry and Lee Wilkins and Carol Horn and Cassandra Spratling of Wayne State who worked to make this possible. Thanks to all the energetic, courageous folks at WDET who allow me to do the work I love every day. Well, just about every day. Thanks to NPR's Don Gagné. Where are you, Don? Don is my hero. And Don hired me to be a WDET producer all those years ago, so if you don't like it, blame Don. Thanks to my mom. Hi, Mom. My mom bought me a Panasonic ball and chain radio for my 5th birthday. It was about this big. It was bright yellow, and I developed two of the loves of my life from that radio, the Beatles, and broadcast journalism. And finally, thanks to my wife, Leslie, who the Lord has put in my life to keep me sane, the Vaughn kids, who make me laugh every single day and sometimes make me go insane, as well as the rest of the Vaughn family and friends. I love you all. Let me just wrap up by saying, kids, I'm doing this for you. I want to make sure you have a vibrant democracy to live in for the first half of this century. Unfortunately, it's on you to make sure that things go right after that. So thank you all for this honor. Thank you very much.
You know, I suspect you're now in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, but I suspect there's a Dad Hall of Fame out there for you somewhere, too, at least based on this table right in front of me. One thing I forgot to do with each nominator, you mentioned, Alicia, with each honoree was their nominators. I should note that Susan's nominator was Brian Dickerson, the editorial page editor of the Free Press. Brian, would you stand? And John's nominator was Stacy Eman, who couldn't be here tonight, but we appreciate that as well. So our final inductee is not here. Evidently, it's pretty ugly up in Mount Pleasant right about now. Jim Wojcik couldn't be here tonight, and we're fortunate to have standing in for him Matt Crossman, who is a former student who had Jim as a mentor and came all the way here from St. Louis tonight, and he will deliver Jim's remarks in a moment. Jim is an associate professor of journalism at CMU, and but perhaps is best known for his 30 years as director of student media there. Anybody who's ever been involved in student media in any way, it's hard for 30 minutes, let alone 30 years, because you're trying to, Tim is nodding over here, you're trying to help young journalists find their way and to imbue them with the values that we all care so deeply about in journalism across all the disciplines. So to do that with such distinction and to have mentored and followed the careers of hundreds of CMU graduates from small papers to the nation's largest. He is a Detroit native, graduated from CMU in 1965, and held a variety of jobs through his career before settling into his current role, including being the editor of the paper in Mount Pleasant. He was instrumental in creating what I think probably many of you know of, the Lem Tucker scholarships at CMU, which help encourage minority journalists to pursue careers in our craft. So it's an honor to welcome Jim Wojcik to the Hall of Fame and to have his dear friend here to speak on his behalf.
As he mentioned, I'm not Jim Wojcik. I don't know how I found myself up here, except for I'm a freelance writer, and I'm genetically predisposed. If somebody says, "Hey, can you do this?" I say yes and figure it out later. So here I am. And before I read, I have to call him Woj. I am never going to be old enough to call him Jim. I want to tell you two things. The first is the story of how I got my first job, which I think anybody who has worked at CM Life can relate to. It was the last month or so before I graduated. And he called me into his office and said there was a job at the Adrian Daily Telegram, 3 words I had never heard before in my life. And he said, "This is the best job that's going to be available. Go get it." And it was so long ago, there was no email. I actually had to type out on like a piece of paper and send my clips in. And I called down there, and the editor, whose name is Roger Hart, told me I wasn't even going to be considered because they weren't considering entry-level applicants. So being the cocky punk that I was, I stormed into Woj's office, and in my mind's eye, he put down his tab, took out his pipe, and asked me what I wanted. And I said, why did you get me all excited about that job? I called down there, it's not even entry level. And he said, who told you that? And I said, Roger Hart. He said, you just let me make a phone call. 2 hours later, Roger Hart called me. I went down, had an interview, and he hired me. Basically because Woj said, hire him. And the other thing I wanted to say about Woj before I read his speech is, in addition to being, teaching me how to be a journalist, teaching me how to ask tough questions, while I was in school, and even more so after, I recognized what a model father and husband he was. And that has been as important to me as anything he taught me in journalism. Because we all talk about how draining this job can be and how it takes you away from this and takes you away from that. Well, he modeled that his wife and his children were more important than that. And I read his speech, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so now to the speech. Anyone who knows Woj knows it takes him 5 minutes to say hello, so I haven't got the foggiest idea how long this is going to be. If it goes over 5 minutes, blame him. Okay. And I'm going to try to, forgive me, I'm just going to read it because I don't have it memorized. Before I start, I want to offer my sincere congratulations to fellow inductees Susan, John, and Jerome. And I will tell you a long-held secret of my life. I have been in love with Susan from the first time I started reading her writing in the Free Press in the early 1980s. I could have easily been called a stalker. I mean, this is so much Woj, I couldn't have done it. And she probably thought I was because I continually bugged her to do writing workshops. For about 10 years, the CMU journalism department did news and advertising full-day workshops twice a year in conjunction with the MPA. If my memory serves me correctly, and it doesn't nearly as much as it used to, Susan did 3 writing workshops for those programs. Carol, that's his wife, Carol and I always enjoyed dinner with her the night before. And the next day, she would share her expertise about things like barstool interviews and what does it mean to the reader, and I'm going to ad-lib this, and there's no such thing as stupid questions, with conference participants. So again, congratulations. When Dave Clark and Tim Boudreau slinked into my office about 8 weeks ago to tell me I had been selected for the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, a funny thing happened. My mouth stayed shut, and my lips were immovable. 2 traits many wished was permanent and were in evidence today. Testify. I was shocked and stunned then, and I am still in a state of stunned shock now as I sit in my house in Mount Pleasant and Matt reads my speech. It proves longevity and old age really do have benefits. I am deeply honored and humbled to be inducted as the educational representative to the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. I never expected it, and I never saw it coming. Maybe that is why I value this honor so much. And I owe so many people so much for this honor to have happened. My name starts with a W, and I am familiar with being last on the list of speakers and sitting in the back of the classroom. I also respect the fact you have sat here patiently waiting tonight and now are praying that this guy hurries up. As I tell students all the time, a good speech is one that has a good beginning, a good ending, and is really short in the middle. To put you at ease, I will try to follow my own rules. The Detroit connection tonight includes me. I was born at Women's Hospital, lived until I was 10 on the near west side in Warrendale areas. I really do value those memories of going to Sanders and Hudson's Toyland on the 12th floor. I remember seeing The Robe at the Fox Theater before Mike Ilitch even heard of it. As a fresh graduate of Clio High School, I headed up US 27 to CMU, an institution that would change my life. I was going to be a high school history teacher and a football, baseball coach. Well, I got half of it right. I did eventually become a teacher. In my junior year, I had to take a class to fill in a group. It had to be either a foreign language class, an English class, or a journalism class. I had 2 years of high school Latin and was an altar boy before Vatican II. That was enough. I never knew which was an altar boy. That's shocking. English always made me pad my writing and add words I didn't think were necessary. That left journalism, and now you know why I am an English teacher's worst nightmare. Norma Jenkins taught the reporting class I took. She reminded me of the nuns, more on them later. But I learned reporting, journalism, and concise writing, and I loved it. So journalism became my career. After graduating and being a sports editor, and then eventually an editor of a small daily, I went back to Central, where then President Bill Boyd offered me the position of Director of Student Publications. He had 2 rules. 1, I could never ask him for money. And 2, he wanted my home number because when the paper first used an F-bomb, he was giving my number out for people to call and complain to. After 30 fantastic years of never receiving any of those phone calls, I joined the journalism department, and for the past 18 years have enjoyed a tremendous third career. Now to the thank yous. To my parents for making sure I grew up with a strong set of values while proudly maintaining my Polish heritage. And yes, I love a good Polish joke as much as anybody. I hope that fact doesn't bother the politically correct. And a sidebar, Woj does not care if it bothers the politically correct. To the nuns, 8 years of nuns, zero tolerance nuns. 8 years of nuns who didn't share my sense of humor. Nobody does. But who gave me 8 years of tremendous education. This is in conjunction with my mother's rule of whatever the nuns did to you for not behaving was worth double the punishment at home. There was no talk about calling the family lawyer and going back to school to debate the issue with the nuns. To my high school teachers, and I had really good ones, who were allowed to teach us how to think and learn, not how to take tests. To my bosses in life, a couple of whom are in this Hall of Fame, Dr. Gil Mindconnect and Dick Millman, along with Jim Good, Al Brandsdorfer, and Russ Heron. To the people who worked for me, especially Vicky Tuma, Jenny Vickers, Roxanne Petoskey, and Kathy Simon, I was darn lucky in the hiring process, and there is absolute truth to the adage that hiring people smarter than you makes the boss look like a genius. These people make me look good. To my colleagues, some of whom are here today, being forced to sit through another session listening to the opinionated poll, I thank them for their tolerance. To my friends who have supported me while all the students during the years were being good, annoying journalists, and I mean really annoying journalists, I loved it. To all the alums, what can I say other than thank you? Thank you for wanting to be good. Thank you for having integrity. Thank you for wanting to have a quality newspaper with hard, honest, and ethical journalism. Thank you for your passion, and most importantly, thank you for all you have done for the past 40 years of Michigan journalism. This is like the hiring mantra I gave you earlier. Good students who work with passion and integrity make the boss look good. All of them, and he has that in caps, all of them, those present and those not here, and this is in caps too, are the reason I am standing here today. And now, and the most important part, my family. Like their father, Mark and Scott, that's his sons, married above their pay grade. It is probably the only time they followed my example because it was their mother who did most of the raising. And she did well because they both have had highly successful careers. They both have an unbelievable work ethic and are models of integrity. I am extremely proud. To Ann and Misty, who couldn't be here because of work commitments, thank you for not only letting your husbands think they are in charge, but also for the grandchildren, James, Grace, Abby, and Mara. I truly value and love all of you. Besides having an academic career change during my junior year at CMU, I also had another life change. I worked with this cute, I know, I'm not supposed to use the scriptures like that, but I worked with this cute little farmer's daughter from the Thumb. Her name is Carol. She was a music major. Needing an angle, I called her one night after work and said, "Hey, can we grab a Coke?" Oh, wait, let me do that. "Hey, can we grab a Coke?" I need some advice about Music 107. Music 107 was another one of those group classes we needed to take. In all honesty, you couldn't have paid me to take that class, but it did get me a date. 2 years after that date, we were married. The wedding was almost 52 years ago, and I haven't had one regret. Please don't anybody ask her if she has any. I call her Wonder Woman. He has that all caps too. I call her Wonder Woman. Those who know her understand why. Remember, I said 52 years, and she is still my wife. As Al Michaels said, do you believe in miracles? I sure do. She is wife, mother, grandmother, career woman. She's had 2 careers. One as an elementary school teacher, and the other as director of disability services at CMU. She's also the adopted mother to many alums, golfing partner. I've played with them. She's better than him. Golfing partner, navigator on interp visits, and absolute best friend. She took those golf clubs I gave her as a wedding present and not only plays more often than me, but usually better, so he's honest too. I can't thank her enough just for being there when I need her, to support me when it matters, and for being the absolute greatest person in the world. I have the best wife in the world. She would be the first inductee into the Hall of Fame for wives after Jerome is inducted into the Hall of Fame for dads. Many times, alum ask me when the book is coming out. Make sure you treat Carol nicely, because she knows the stories and has heard the rants, and her memory is better than mine. In closing, finally, he said, I'm often asked, when am I retiring, or what is it like to deal with millennials? I don't know when I am retiring, but I need to tell you, I enjoy working with the millennials. They are generous, kind, caring, helpful, volunteer-oriented, and most of them want to learn. We old people are the millennials' problem. We have made many of them afraid to talk, afraid to debate, afraid to argue, and afraid to question things because they are afraid of offending other people. It has been my experience, and I mean this sincerely, young people want standards. Young students want to be pushed. Young students want to learn and get better. I urge you to push them, to challenge them, to test them. Not multiple choice tests, but to test them. Hold them accountable for their actions. Let them understand there are consequences for actions. Don't coddle them. They don't want to be coddled, even though some may not know that yet. Don't make excuses for them, and most importantly, don't let them make excuses. As I tell them all the time, I'm kicking you out of your sandbox. Don't smother them, but rather do support them, guide them, love them, and listen to them. I assure you, the vast majority will respond in a positive manner, and that is what education is all about. Positive learning outcomes, both from books and in real life. Thank you.
Matt Crossman, ladies and gentlemen, probably one of the better freelance assignments of late, although the rate might not have been very good.
Actually, if I got $1 work for that, I did all right.
Yeah, that's true. Is David Clark in the audience? David nominated Woj. I don't know him, but I feel like I can call him that. Thank you, David. Would you stand up and be recognized? So that concludes our evening. 4 magnificent inductees. Again, it just shows you the power of journalism, the dedication of people in our craft, that these 3 plus Buddy have made such a profound difference in our communities, in our state, and in our craft. Speaks for its enduring value, speaks, of course, powerfully about all of them. And, you know, as a working journalist, it continues to give me motivation and pride and determination to keep going and to keep a sacred trust alive. Thank you all for being here. Drive carefully. There's an alleged ice storm somewhere in the region. And see you again next year. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah.